Welcome to another long-awaited edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 204, the Halloween sugar-free edition. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and today's November 3rd, 2015.
All right, welcome to another long-awaited edition of the show. We're sorry we can't record as much as we did in the spring. George and I are rather busy. I've been traveling. I just got back from the TEC convention in Canada. Had a great time. And so George and I have kind of been missing each other back and forth. George, every time we get together, we talk about mom and dad. How is the situation there?
Difficult.
Yep.
Difficult. We took away the car keys, and that's caused a great deal of emotional turmoil in the household. Sure. And we're discussing assisted living, moving them there. These are all things that are emotionally and financially earth-shattering.
Yes, they are. Well,
and so these are things that are taking a great deal of my wife and my emotional energy and time.
Yeah, I had made the mistaken idea that once the studio was finally finished and I moved everything in and set up all the cameras, that boom, we would just have all the time in the world to sit and record and talk about all the stuff we wanted to our heart's desire. But no, we are actually busy people with busy lives. George, tell us a little bit about your parish. You are part of a Florida congregation on the Diocese of Central Florida.
Yeah, we are. We're going gangbusters.
Mm-hmm.
We are up about at least 20% in terms of attendance over this time last year. New people coming every day. We were in an inflationary bubble last spring.
Mm-hmm.
Summer, everything sort of slowed down, and now that inflationary bubble's returning. God is just doing fantastic things here at this parish. And see, I live in a town of 5,000 people, and I'll get 200 people in a church on a Sunday. That's a pretty good turnout.
This is very good.
Yeah. And on one level, we're going to run out of the natural Episcopalians, but we draw people from trailer parks. We draw very, very poor people. We draw a few wealthy people. We don't have a middle class as America has it. This is the rural South, and yet God is blessing and doing great things here.
It's interesting to contrast you being in the Episcopal Church with a growing church of faithful believers. I'm up here in post-Christian Northeast, where people just don't go to church. And we get 30 to probably 35 on a Sunday, and we're very pleased by that. We actually have a new rector who started almost 2-3 months ago, and he's doing a fabulous job. But we don't expect to ever have 190 unless we meet in the nuclear shelter, and then there's a nuclear bomb, and they all show up. So we're probably not going to get those numbers, but it's interesting to contrast, churches in different places. Florida's a vibrant place with an older population. Here in Connecticut, we have lots of millennials who go to school, then move out, and we have lots of highly educated Yale, Harvard types who don't have time for church, don't have time for God in their lives, and they're very difficult to evangelize. Enough about us. What about the world? What's going on in the Anglican Communion? Well, we're going to talk about the new presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church. Not that George and I personally know him yet, but we thought we'd give a few of our thoughts on his opening sermon and kind of what is expected of him in the church, and probably what he expects of the Episcopal Church. First, his name is Presiding Bishop Michael Curry. He comes from North Carolina, right, George? Got that right?
Yes.
And was elected at the Salt Lake Convention. And he gave his sermon and he said, God is not done with the Episcopal Church yet. Well, George's church in Central Florida is a great example of that. Now, do we want to speak of this on a national level or a local diocesan level or a church level? Let's just talk about it on a political level to start with. George, tell me a little bit about the background of Michael Curry.
Michael Curry comes out of the Black Episcopal Church movement. What does that mean?
Yeah, whoa.
Michael Curry, before he became Bishop of North Carolina about 10, 15 years ago, was rector progressively of churches that were African American. And he came out, he was shaped and formed by the Black Christian experience, Protestant Christian experience in the United States, going through the 60s and 70s and the Civil Rights movement and all of that. And so when Michael Curry speaks, he speaks not in traditional Episcopal tones, but he speaks from a movement and a perspective that is part of the Episcopal tradition, but is not the mainstream, if you will. That having been said, Michael Curry does support liberal causes. His diocese does have gay clergy, gay blessings, all this and that. But for Michael Curry, as we heard in his sermon at the Washington's National Cathedral on All Saints' Day, November 1st, he recognizes that there's trouble in River City. 37-minute sermon, he said 3 times, God is not through yet with the Episcopal Church. Now, you say it once, that's rhetorical. You say it twice, maybe you forgot to say it the first time. You say it 3 times, what you're basically trying to drive home the point that I recognize that they're trouble, but we're going to try to turn this ship around.
Mm-hmm. Well, in George and I, before we did our pre-show, we said we're not going to juxtapose Michael Curry versus Shorey. But I want to say, in terms of that, I don't expect Michael Curry to be deposing priests. I don't expect him to be suing churches or dioceses, other than what's already in the works. I suspect that even though he's been installed now for 2 days, that he's not going to call up the lawyers in the Diocese of South Carolina and say, cease and desist, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to try our hardest to get that seal in that name, and stuff like that. And we just had news this week that St. Anne's in San Diego or Oceanside had closed. I mean, what's happening in the Episcopal Church is still happening, regardless of the new leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Michael Curry, I don't think wants to fight those battles. He may support the person of his successor. He may say predecessor. He may say nice things about Catherine Jefferson Shorey, but he is not pushing her agenda. In his sermon, 37 minutes long, it was very light on substance. If you listened to it, you heard God's not through with the Episcopal Church. We had his theme. He preached from Bobby McFerrin's 1988 single, Don't Worry, Be Happy. That was his theme. And then he talked a bit about racial reconciliation. That was it. Mm-hmm. Now, for a certain type of Episcopalian, that was fascinating. It was exciting because, in essence, they're sort of slumming. They're taking part in the Black church experience, and they think this is wonderful and profound. Well, this was all extemporaneous from Michael Curry. It was vintage performance of his, and they got what they expected, a nice guy speaking in tropes and rhythms that make them feel Christian. The issue is the vocabulary that he's using, talking about Jesus, talking about faith, talking about repentance, redemption. What does he understand by those words? Is he the nice guy that he sets himself up to be? Does he believe in these themes and these words that he's setting out? Is he truly an evangelical? Is he someone mouthing platitudes that he doesn't necessarily believe? Or does he believe them in ways that are different from others?
Well, it's interesting because I, as an evangelical, don't recognize his vocabulary as being evangelical. He's saying the right words, but he has a different meaning to those words.
Kevin, that's the definition of an evangelical.
Yes, not
Evangelical
recognizing
is
other.
recognizing other people as evangelical.
We all have our own little bubbles, and there's truth to that. And so we have a new presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, and we have a primates gathering happening in January, where the primates of the Anglican community are going to get together and have a little powwow conversation about, from what we've heard, the future and how it's going to leadership is going to evolve in the Episcopal in the Anglican Church, and what to do with Canada and TEC. Whereas I see a different definition of the words he's speaking, what does Welby do? Does Welby say, oh, this guy's going to be a great team player, we can work with him, he's not a Shorey, he's not a Bob Duncan, so this is the solution to the problem in North America?
Well, Welby is in a fantastic position, the best he's been in for years, because it is a new team out there.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Jefferts Schori and Michael Curry are very, very different people. They may espouse the same theologies and heart, but they're different people. You can work with Curry the way you could not with Catherine Jefferts Schori. Now, there's issues of pride, issues of ideology, all sorts of personal issues there. But that's all moved on. The question, though, is Justin Welby has to, I believe, allow the GAFCON Global South primates to set the agenda. They're the majority. They're going to want to do that. But he has to do it in such a way that will disappoint some of their supporters back in the United States. They're groups of people that all they want out of this meeting is for somebody to go in and slap Michael Curry in the face and call him a hypocrite and a heretic and a liar, and then walk out and prove a point that they're holier than Michael Curry is. And so there's a great deal of pressure to have a showdown and decide the issue today, in this moment, in this meeting. Now, what we know about Michael Curry is that he's a go-along, get-along type of guy. In the Diocese of North Carolina, conservatives had two basic reactions from him. Those who fought him, who basically said to him, your theology is sinful, you're going to go to hell, you're a bad bishop. Well, he gave as good as he got. He fought back, and so there are people from North Carolina who tell us Michael Curry is a hard-nosed. Mm-hmm. Then there are people who said, I told Michael Curry I didn't believe in what he was saying, but I still respected him in his office, and we would agree to disagree. He got on great with those guys. So what does that tell you at this meeting? If people go in, GAFCON immediately going for blood in the first day, it's all going to blow up. But if they're going to basically try to work with him and try to find areas of common agreement that they can begin with, I think we may have a successful primates meeting from Justin Welby's perspective.
Right. Well, and there comes the problem, because all the other primates meetings had actions that occurred over time. You and I were at the Dar es Salaam meeting, where the instructions were basically to Roland Williams go to the House of Bishops in Louisiana of the Episcopal Church and seek some type of repentance and turnaround from what the Episcopal Church is doing. And that's a great start. But over time, all these types of actions never happen. And I think what the fear is, or my fear would be if I were a GAFCON primate, is if we have an agenda that happens outside of the meeting, it's not going to happen. That whatever happens has to happen in this 3, 4, 5 day time period. Whatever actions have to be agreed upon and happen here before we can start working on stuff outside of the meeting. And I see the difficulty, I can see the desire, let's go slow, let's do it right this time. Well, going slow in the past didn't work.
Yes, but I think we're talking about personalities now. And the expectation that change can be effected in a single meeting, that's not going to happen. Michael Curry, even if he agreed to every single thing that the GAFCON primates wanted to do, he couldn't implement it. Mm-hmm. He's not an archbishop. He's a presiding bishop. He has to get a general convention and the House of Bishops behind him. However, you can start the conversation and you can start the ball rolling and you can find areas of commonality that allow you to reach an eventual common mind. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to go in and hit them on the head, hit each other on the head first time around, save yourself the airfare. It's not worth going.
Well, I think part of the solution then is to assume then that the Canadian Church and the Episcopal Church are outside the communion, and there's things they can do to get themselves back into the communion. If I were Global South and GAFCON, I would certainly come from that perspective. Justin Welby isn't. Justin Welby, according to the a radio interview he had last fall, says that, well, basically, I choose what's Anglican and what's not Anglican. In due fairness, the definition of Anglican is of England, and I suppose we can let an English person choose what is Anglican, but I don't know if that's going to last very long, George.
No, and it doesn't last. It's not there now.
Right.
There is no. And after the 1998 Lambeth Conference, I'm sorry, the 2008 Lambeth Conference, you and I talked to people. We talked, and we basically said, that's the last one.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. It's done. The communion's broken. And we were pilloried by various people on the liberal side and the conservative side. There's been no communion there's been no communion since the 70s, really.
Yeah, probably.
But and then 2003 happened, then 2008 happened. It can only get better, frankly, Kevin. It can only improve at this point. And I think that's where Justin Welby needs to, I would encourage him to look at ways to, okay, well, what small steps can we take right now to close some of these gaps? Realizing full well that, you're not going to have Gene Robinson stand up at the next House of Bishops meeting and say, oh, I was wrong. It could happen.
Could happen. Might happen. The Holy Spirit has done crazier things. And that's something we need to pray about. Now,
and the other thing, Kevin, you need to remember is the dynamics within the House of Bishops and the Episcopal Church. The 1998 Lambeth Conference, where the Section 1.10 on human sexuality, where homosexuality was considered wrong, not God's plan, and this and that, the majority of bishops of the Episcopal Church voted for it because of the dynamics of the meeting. And even though a majority outside the meeting would have opposed it, in the meeting they supported it. Look at this last General Convention in Salt Lake City. The Episcopal Church's sort of liberal juggernaut saying, we've got to nail Israel, we've got to be like the United Church of Christ and the Presbyterians and just hammer Israel because Israel is bad, Palestinians are good. The Episcopal bishops, by an overwhelming majority, 3/4, 80-90%, backed Israel in one of these disinvestment issues against the will of the liberal elites because of the intercession of the Archbishop of Jerusalem and other Arab Anglicans saying, look, this is not helpful. Here's the truth on the ground. Don't beat up on Israel. Let's work for a common solution. Now, what does all this say? This says that these are men and women who will respond to positive pressure, helpful coercion, and can be steered in the right direction given time and preparation. But if left to their own devices and if approached in a confrontational manner, they'll go off and do what they're going to do anyway.
well, we're going to have to see. And we'll have to request your prayers of the situation. Oh, and we need to request your money. George and I would like to go over to England to attend the Primates gathering. Primates meetings don't really have an official press setup. There's no press room and stuff like that. They basically just tolerate you. Like a Lambeth and other types of functions, you get a press badge and all that type of thing, and everything's official. Primates meetings are different because they really want to spend the whole week keeping you from talking to any of the primates. And that's kind of difficulty. George and I had a great time in Dar es Salaam, sitting in the little cafe on the Tahiti beach, drinking diet soda and eating French fries. And we don't intend to do fish and chips the whole time we're in England, but we do want to be there to catch the news we can catch.
The only time, Kevin, where we drank the water and ate the fruit, we both got terrible dysentery.
You got really sick. You and about 60 press people dropped dead about day 4, and it was pretty horrible. It was one of my first international trips. I was talking to my doctor before I left. He says, these pills, there's 8 of them. They're called Cipro. If people around you start getting sick, you take these pills, you'll do just fine. And so I get an email from George, who's in his bathroom in his hotel room. I can't come out right now. I did just fine. So please go to anglicaninc.com/donate. Click on the donate button and help send us to Canterbury, England. Probably going to cost $2,000 or $3,000. If you want to give that all to one sum, that's great. If you want to give 20, 50, or 100 at a time, whatever you can do would help greatly.
Extra money would enable us to get these parabolic microphones and bug the conference room. So as much as you invest, we'll use that money productively.
Absolutely. All right, George, I'll catch you next week. Oh, that's not our sign off. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 204 of Anglican Unscripted.